So Tulsi Gabbard is back on Fox News talking about what we need to solve our problems in America. Her prescription? More God. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So Tulsi Gabbard, former Democratic Congresswoman and former Democratic candidate for president, who supported Joe Biden in 2020, left the party to become a highly paid commentator on Fox News. Well, here she is with former Trump spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany saying a few things I agree with, but mostly things that are completely without basis. Let's check it out here.
Trust to act on their behalf and not on behalf of powerful special interests? That's the question. Joining me now, Tulsi Gabbard, former Hawaii Congresswoman, 2020 presidential candidate and Fox News contributor. Hello, Tulsi. Welcome.
Hi, Kayleigh. Thank you.
You know, it seems as if the little guy, if you will, always is responsible for the big guy. The big guy always gets the preferential treatment, whether it's bailing out a Chinese investor, whether it's the community banks paying in special assessments that bail out Silicon Valley. Why is that?
God, I find myself in a weird position of actually agreeing with Kayleigh McEnany. I have those concerns, but I find it rich that she's the one bringing them up after having worked in the Trump administration. After all, isn't that the administration that actually weakened protections that might have addressed some of the issues that led to many of the train derailments? Ah, yes, but they were looking out for the little guy when they were doing that, right? Let's keep watching.
There's this revolving door, and Kayleigh, I know you're very, very familiar with, where constantly
She is very, very familiar with this revolving door. More familiar than one might wish to admit. Let's keep watching.
We see how, for example, members of Congress who are supposed to be regulating big pharma don't, and then they go and leave Congress and get a big payout from big pharma. We see it with the military-industrial complex. Secretary Austin, then General Austin, retires from the military, goes and works for Raytheon, now goes back as a Secretary of Defense, and seeing the billions of dollars that is going towards the military-industrial complex. We see that with these financial
I actually don't disagree with what she's saying here, but let's keep watching.
Regulators, people who are in positions to actually do their job to protect the little guy, to protect our small and community banks. But instead, what are they doing? They're looking for that payout where they can go and work for the big banks that they are allowing off the hook. It's this incredible abuse of power that voids that trust that you're talking about here.
Okay, again, I actually agree with what Kayleigh and Tulsi Gabbard are saying here, when of course it was the Trump administration that Kayleigh McEnany worked for, that she and Tulsi Gabbard regularly defend on Fox News, that actually changed the regulations in such a way that led almost directly to the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank and other banks their size. But let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story. Let's keep watching.
And frankly, this is the thing that needs to be fixed. I look back to the Declaration of Independence, where our founders very correctly recognized the propensity for abuse of power for those who start to get some. And so they told us, hey, those in power derive their power from the consent of the governed. And that's where, as we look at how do we fix this mess, where is there any hope to be found? Through the consent of the governed. That means every one of us has this incredible responsibility to oversee those who we place in power, to hold them accountable when they are abusing those positions, and elect those who truly take that responsibility seriously of serving the American people, upholding the Constitution, putting the interests of the American people first.
I agree with that. That's, by the way, why Donald Trump was defeated. Let's keep watching, though.
So speaking of, you say consent of the governed, they don't seem to have much consent at the moment. We have the numbers. We'll pop it up for you. The level of trust in institutions is remarkably low. U.S. government, GOP has 35% trust, Democrats 63%, Congress 40%, Republicans 54%, Democrats. As you can see, there's definitely falling trust among Republicans specifically, but even, Wall Street, Democrats 46%. There's just distrust.
They're surprised that Democrats don't have a lot of trust in Wall Street. Have they talked to Democrats lately? But none of these numbers are surprising. In fact, I could throw up numbers up there right now that show that Democrats view the economy more favorably than Republicans, and that reverses when the Republicans are in charge. Everything that we see in America is filtered through partisan lenses at this point, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. Let's keep watching.
Broadly.
Yeah, there is. For me, I think one of the only institutions that I think we can trust right now is the Supreme Court, serving as
the Supreme Court. Ah, yes, there's an organization that has widespread trust in America right now, right? Oh, but Gallup found that the Supreme Court has job approval and trust at historic lows. In fact, their job approval right now is only at 40%, lower than approval for Joe Biden, and almost as low as Republicans' trust in the government. But let's keep watching.
To check on a lot of this abuse of power, but ultimately what it comes down to
yes, the Supreme Court is a check on this abuse of power. Of course, they have no problem deciding that government is allowed to interfere in the bedroom. But let's keep watching.
The only one that we can really trust is God. And once again, our founders really recognize this and put these systems in place specifically for we the people to ensure that this country belongs to us and that.
Okay, God, yes. Let's take a moment to talk about that. Because as it turns out, the Constitution, which I think was a document drafted by the founding fathers, wasn't it? Yes. That document, guess what it does not mention anywhere in the document? That would be God. Nowhere is it mentioned. It does mention the year of our Lord, but that was just the way that people talked about the Common Era, kind of the way we do AD now. But other than that, there is no mention of God anywhere in the Constitution. So I'm not convinced that the Founding Fathers were so serious about including God as a basis for this country. Let's keep watching.
We do have the opportunity and that responsibility to ensure that our government is of, by, and for the people. So all this erosion of trust that you're seeing in those numbers that you just cited, that comes from the fact that we have far too many corrupt politicians, far too many corrupt unelected bureaucrats who we don't know what their names are, but they are operating behind, in the dark, behind the curtains, in the shadows, essentially changing laws and making decisions that affect us in our everyday lives for their own benefit. And we have no way to hold them accountable. So we do this by taking action through those who we choose to hire and fire through this system that our founders created for us, which is still the best system in the world.
Yes, again, it's the system that voted out Donald Trump and did not vote for Tulsi Gabbard for president. Let's keep watching.
I couldn't agree more with you, especially when it comes to God. Just a few moments here, but it's ironic to me that God, someone you can trust, is who is being run out of society. We know he was an integral part of our founding, mentioned in many of our founding documents.
Not mentioned in the Constitution, interestingly enough. But let's keep watching.
Separation of church and state found nowhere in our founding documents.
Really? That's news to me. There's such a thing called the First Amendment, which says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. An establishment of religion means you cannot have a government-sponsored religion in the United States. That is separation of church and state. But yes, it's mentioned nowhere in our founding documents. Let's keep watching.
However, it's been utilized to create a religion of secularism. Do you think it's doing damage, the fact that we are erasing broadly God out of a society in a way perhaps our founders never intended?
Okay, again, I just feel the need to bring up a couple more facts about this whole God thing. Let me read a couple quotes from one of our founding fathers. That would be Thomas Jefferson, who is actually the author of the Declaration of Independence, which was mentioned earlier. He wrote that the First Amendment's original attempt established a, quote, wall of separation between church and state. And he further stated that religious freedom was foundational to our country, as he wrote, quote, "It does me no injury for my neighbor to believe in 20 gods or no God. It neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg." That's Thomas Jefferson, by the way. What's more, if you're looking for some clarity here, the Treaty of Tripoli, which the United States entered into with the Barbary pirates, stated clearly, and I quote, "The government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion." This document, by the way, was initiated by George Washington, signed by John Adams, and ratified unanimously by the Senate, which included a majority of the signers of the Constitution. I don't know how much clearer we can get than that as to the intent of the founders. So much for this religion of secularism, which unfortunately for Kaylee and Tulsi actually has its basis with our founding fathers. Beyond all this, the thing I love is how these are the same people who are defenders of Donald Trump. Of course, Kaylee worked for Donald Trump, and yet it's pretty clear that those folks were no defenders of religion. If you want to know what I'm talking about, check out this video over here. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.